So recently, I watched Simon Jordan's podcast slash interview with Kell Brook, and I thought he had a very interesting career. And I thought there's a very important question to be asked in, was he mismanaged as a fighter? So let's take a look at Brook's career. His most notable win was probably against Sean Porter when he won his world title. He went to America, beat Porter in his backyard, fought him on the inside very well, and came out with a pretty clear victory. It seems like from what I've read, he was an underdog, but I wasn't around at the time, so I can't tell you how truthful those sources were, but it seems like he was an underdog for the fight. So after his win, he went on holiday to Tenerife with his family, where he got stabbed in his leg. This was his second time being stabbed. The first time was outside like a nightclub when it was 21. I think it was still quite bad, but I think this time was worse. So he was drinking in a bar where he got invited to like an after party type thing, and he got in an argument with a guy when they were discussing if using like knives or guns was cowardly. Brooke was of the belief that using knives and gun was cowardly because obviously he's a fighter. He believes the strong thing to do is fight hand to hand. So the other guy, probably off his head on drugs and drink, came back and said, "Oh, you think I'm a coward?" And obviously came back with a knife and just stabbed Kell Brook in his leg. Obviously, Brook recovered from this, but he said it was hard to tell if he did lose a part of him, his fighting style, when this happened. He went on to win his next fights, but they weren't against the big names of the division at the time. He'd fought against kind of his mandatories, but they weren't very well known. So again, we can see, his management team is struggling to build his profile. This led his management team to putting him in with Golovkin, who obviously is a monster, and two weight class, and Golovkin is two weight classes above Kell Brook. As we've learned from the Eubank Jr. situation, cutting weight can be very dangerous, and obviously once you gain it, it's hard to lose it, and this messes with your punch resistance. At the time, Jordan said, he felt sorry for Kell Brook. They can't build his profile, so they've had to put him in against a complete monster in Golovkin and watch him get his head punched off. And obviously Golovkin was only beaten twice by Canelo. And from what I read, I think they're controversial. They are slightly controversial as well. So in the fight, Kell Brook broke his orbital bone in his eye. And he said if the fight had gone on, he could have been blind forever. So again, this just shows the real danger of, mismatching fights. Brook clearly wasn't ready. And the weight class thing. So this is what happens, bad things happen when you make bad decisions. He said he thought the fight damaged him, but because obviously it wasn't at his weight category and everyone knew Golovkin was a bit of a monster, he said he could kind of live with it. He said the fight that affected him worse was the Errol Spence loss. He broke his orbital bone again, which again probably showed that he had taken some damage from the Golovkin fight. His eye probably wasn't fully healed. And he obviously would have lost the kind of aura you have as an undefeated fighter. They talk about world champions. When you're a world champion, you kind of walk around with a different swagger. I'm assuming it's the same when you're undefeated, He said this was the fight that, kind of really broke him and sent him into a low mental place. He said, that's from the damage and the weight, having to lose a lot of weight after having put it on for the Golovkin fight and just injuries, Yeah, he said he had a bad camp. He didn't leave his hometown, so obviously just surrounded by distractions. He was having problems with his trainer, and his dad even told him he thought beforehand that he should pull out. So after this loss, he won a few more fights. He then went on to face Terence Crawford, who obviously now we recognise as one of the pound-for-pound greats after beating Errol Spence. in a very one-sided fight. Again, for this one, he said there were reasons to fight. You know, he wasn't at his best. Because of lockdown, he was in Spain, so he had a trainer that didn't speak English. But obviously, he gave Crawford a lot of recognition, said Crawford's like a shotgun. The way he switches from orthodox to southpaw is, incredible. However, on a more positive note for Kell, he ended his career with a win against his domestic rival, Amir Khan. Again, this is probably one of the fights that should have happened when they were in their prime. A bit like Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua, but at least it finally happened. So at the time, he was interviewed with Simon Jordan, and Jordan backed Amir Khan to beat him because he said speed beats timing, whereas Brook responded with timing beats speed. So turns out Kell Brook was right. So in conclusion, I think he was definitely mismanaged as a fighter. I think the decision to put him in 2 weight classes heavier than what he is against Golovkin was a mistake, although it did build his profile, just a mistake for his career and his wellness as a fighter. I think obviously fighting mandatory smaller names didn't help build his profile either. Should have fought Khan in his prime. So I think, yeah, he was definitely mismanaged, but, a great fighter. He proved that in his win against Porter. And, I'm glad he got his win against Amir Khan to end his career. Although it sounds like he might be back to fight Chris Eubank Jr., who he dislikes. He says he struggled with, having no purpose. Now he's retired from boxing, which I understand, but it's like, do you find something new? Or do you go back and risk kind of losing and embarrassing yourself if you're not at your best? So I think, yeah, it's a hard decision to make. I think I'd like to see the fight, but obviously depends what's best for him personally. So yeah, let me know your thoughts about Kell Brook in the comments. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Thank you. Goodbye.